Welcome to One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers, where we get curious about what makes us tick. Now we're here again with Monica Gaisie. We had so much to talk about last time that we thought we would actually get together again and do two podcasts. So I'm delighted again to say welcome again, Monica. So I just wanted to pick up a little bit of where we left off last time, because we'd spent a lot of time talking about how you'd got to where you were. We were talking about a lot of the challenges that life and society and culture brings us. And I wanted to get into the next question, which was thinking about this in two chunks, really. There was we've spent a lot of time talking about our own personal journey and how we get out of our own way, we were describing it. But then there's the other bit, which is that conditioned cultural boundaries that we are brought up under. And I think they're two separate things, aren't they?
No.
Okay.
To me, it doesn't feel like they're two separate things. And no, actually, I lie. No, you're right. So with the personal, if I say the personal is more like your brain working, survival. Our brains are built for survival. So our brains will get us in our own way to keep us safe.
Yeah.
That yes. And then the other side of it is that social conditioning, which is it's different for different people, and I think in the last episode I mentioned generational. I wanted to undo the generational conditioning that we had, and it's passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation, and it just changes depending on the environment, the energy, or the
your surroundings.
Thank you.
Yes.
at the time. So for you, yours would be very different to mine.
Yeah.
But then with mine is that added element of race.
Yes.
And so, which is why I think when two people are talking about, so we go back to business, like diversity in the organisation, when two people are talking, they each has a very real experience, and there's I can see what I'm not getting. I can see what you get and what I don't get, and I can see how that happens. And you just think it's normal, in essence.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, what are you talking about? Everyone has this opportunity.
and this really interests me. This piece, because and we mentioned last time. People say, "Oh, well, you just need to see it from the other person's point of view." But that can be such a huge difference.
We have different points of views.
Yeah. And it's not quite as, I don't quite know how to describe it, but it's not a case of like we got a difference over whether we're going to have this wallpaper or that wallpaper difference. These are deeply embedded and conditioned in frames of reference. So I suppose what that means is to make any progress here and to see it from someone else's point of view, you've got to put a lot of effort and energy into trying to understand the other point of view.
Absolutely. And to for a moment, take yourself out of that. Take who you are in that moment out of it. And really, honestly, not even to put yourself in other person's shoes, because you can't do that. Really listen to what they're saying, really try and understand what they're saying, and not trying to interpret it from your own frame of reference, as it were. So, for instance, what was I talking about the last time? The authority piece, that one. So, where a young white man has been brought up to speak his mind and, there's always been encouraged to move through, never had any blockers, never been prevented from being in any certain space or had anyone call them up for something that they haven't done, but because you look like that, you have done it, in comparison to someone else who has to really watch every step they take or second guess what they're saying, think about the tone of voice they're saying it in. It's all those little things. But then when you got a young white guy and a young black guy together in the room, the white guy's like, well, I don't see what the problem is. Because you've never had to. You've never had to. And so that's where it starts with really pausing and being like, okay, I've never had to. But if I had to, what would that look like? What would that feel like? What would it be? It's that kind of thing. Is that really hearing what the other person is saying?
And to do that, and I suppose the challenge that we've got in the fields that we both operate in is how do we get people to be curious enough to want to do that? Because there's effort involved, isn't there? There
isn't.
Okay.
And that's half the problem, because you'd really why do you want the change? So unless you can actually see an injustice, people don't want change unless they felt a disconnect or the unfairness themselves. And until someone they care about deeply, or somehow, unless something happens that's deeply connected to where they are, they're not going to even want to start the conversation, really. The policies might be in place to please investors and stakeholders and stuff like that, but really to embed it in the culture and have forums or platforms where people are able to have these honest conversations. I think there has to be that why. And as coaches, that's when we're talking to people about why they want to make a change, why they want to go for a goal, or why they want to do that uncomfortable thing, is because they have that why. So that's why I'm like, there's nothing unless that someone has that why, and I can't say what their why would be.
Yeah. So it comes back again to that frame of reference that we were speaking about. This is, I suppose, where those two then meet, isn't it? Because it's you perceive that there's a barrier or an effort there, whereas actually we're probably just in our own way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, going back to your question about why we didn't want to do that, it's maybe are we painting a good enough picture about what a really inclusive environment would get you? How would it grow individuals? How would it progress you as a human? How would it progress business as a human? How would it progress society and social policy and everything else? It rolls on from there and onwards, really. But that is an excellent question. What would encourage someone to do that? And it's how do we paint that picture and make it big enough carrot?
And I think it's about painting that vision, isn't it? It's what's that vision of a future? What does that look like?
And step out of your way to be like, okay, if this isn't it, what could it be? And that's why it's such a big thing. It's huge. It's a huge task, and it's going to be years in the doing. But I mean, the younger generation, I'm in awe. I'm just in awe about how they're taking up all the mantles, race, gender, sexuality, all that kind of stuff. I'm just, I love them.
Well, it's we seem to be moving to a place now, and I think part of this is down to it's so easy to have an exchange of views now. You have to be careful. Social media has got huge positives and massive negatives as well. But suddenly there is this ability to create a different commonality. So rather than there being groups based on, traditional groupings, dare I say, but you can actually now have a common thread because people have a similar set of values.
Yes, and that's what it's all about now. It's value. The younger generation want to work with a company that is value driven, and that's what they're looking for. And that definitely is the mechanism for change. I think it's like, what are your values? Are you living your values?
That's really, in fact, that is such a good point. The number of we deal with a number of businesses, and if I think in the past you walk into a company and sometimes they will have those values on the wall of the reception, and then you walk in and you spend some time talking to people. They're not living those values.
They're not living it. They're not living it.
Yeah.
I've been in those places.
Yeah.
They're not living it.
You can tell, can't you, when you spend time in a group of people, in an organisation, around people give off their values because it's an output.
Yeah. It's like in the coaching circles I move in, like it's like BO. Yeah. You can smell your values. It's like you could talk it, but then really people can smell whether you're living it or not.
I love that. I love that. That is brilliant. Culture's like BO. That's great. But it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah. You can't hide it.
Yeah, it's saying and doing, isn't it? Or talking the talk, walking the walk, however you want to describe it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Fantastic.
So I think the whole thing really is about that. It's like how do you pull people into the vision?
Yeah.
And also knowing that it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. But we've just got to keep talking, got to keep doing it. And when I mentioned like the young'uns that are soon going to be taking over everything, they've got it. They've got it, and yeah.
It's the thing that I also find interesting, and I'm still learning now, is if you want to have conversations like we're having today, and we want to have sort of very real conversations like that, you've got to find a way of putting yourself in an area where people have access to that. What do I mean by that? It would be very easy, wouldn't it, to just we do publish on LinkedIn, but it'd be very easy just to put stuff on LinkedIn, in which case you're only ever going to interact with people who are on LinkedIn. Or you put it out on Facebook, which is going to attract another audience as well. And I think it's how we continually get creative about engaging with different slices and sectors and groupings such that we can have more conversations. I think that's...
Absolutely. Make it easy.
Yes.
And so do what you can do in your own network, because your own network has their own network, and then network after this is funny. I was talking to my daughter the other day about two friends who got together on a blind date, and I was telling her about it, and she was like, "But don't they know each other?" No, Marlene, no. This one doesn't know that one, and she's like, "But how does that work?" I was like, "I have different friends." Like, so talking about the networks, you have your network, and your friends in that network have their network, and that's how it's going to spread. So rather than think about eating the whole pie, where do we start? And start with your slice of pie.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Okay, that's great. So we talked a bit about where you might go next. We talked a bit about that last time. I'd like to just almost use the question I'd normally ask at the very, very end, and it's probably, I'd like to talk about your answer, is if knowing what you know now, having had a bob, and having, been doing what you're doing now and discovered a passion and had that really interesting journey to get you there, if you could time travel, and you could leave yourself a note in an envelope that you would find as your younger self, what would you write in it?
So many things. So the top one would be speak up, be brave, speak up. And the second one, I think, is they're only human.
Right.
But I made that face because I'm talking about my parents. And so when I say they're only human, it's like they're just doing their best.
Yeah.
They're only doing their best.
Yeah.
And I think those two would definitely be the ones, because it has been. I mean, the human part, they're only doing the best. I kind of realised that a few years ago, and it definitely changed how I interact with my parents. But the speak up piece, since I started building my business.
Yeah.
So, when did you get so quiet? I don't post on social media. I know what people are going to think about me. But I jest about that now. But when I look back through life, I talk about being a bit of a loudmouth. But really, it's because I was so scared inside about saying what I needed to say.
Yeah.
You know, and so it would be just be brave, because what I've got to say is important, and I'm important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's a point you make there about, you know, being brave enough to say something, and I think that's huge. And I heard someone say this. I think it was a guy. It was a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said about posting on social media stuff. He says if you've got something to say, he said you should really say it. He says, because that might just be the one thing which someone needs to hear today.
Yeah. So,
He says, and, you know, if you can think of, you know, and as soon as you start worrying about what might people think about me saying that,
it's lost.
It's the loss.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's degrees of this, but I think what his sentiment was, you know, if you've got a thought about how we could develop a conversation, then you should say it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is even, you know, if we to pull it back from the coaching piece, just to make it every day. We were out with some of the school gang last weekend, and the parents were in the kitchen chatting, and we just somehow got onto domestics. And then, you know, one of the mums we were talking about changing bed covers. One of the mums was like, "Oh, I found a wonderful tip the other day." She goes, "If you fold up the duvet, fold up the pillowcase and sheets in the set, slide it into a pillowcase. Done." Oh, that's genius. Changed my life. And so when I told her what it had, like, I'd done it, and I was like, I'm never looking back. She's like, also in the same session, she was talking about seasoning meat. And then one of the other mums decided that she was going to go and try it at home, and she's now going to be doing that forever. So it's just from that small example, because I was thinking about it with coaching, is like, absolutely just talk. Don't censor, because even if it's just one person, you can be making such a difference to their lives. And
that's what drives me. You know, if one person listening to this podcast gets one idea to put all their things in a pillowcase.
All the things in
a pillowcase.
Exactly. See? Thanks, Corinne.
But that's it, isn't it? And it might just be one thought or one thing to ponder that they might then go and have a conversation with someone else on. And maybe then that moves us towards one or two more people have a few more things to smile about. Yeah.
So the Gary V thing and saying what's on your mind. I mean, at the beginning of my business, I had, like I said, real drama about the social media posting. And I think it was last January, I was like, right, okay, I'm just going to do a live every day. Doesn't matter what I say, Gary V style. I'm just going to do a live every day. And halfway through, I had a message in Messenger from a friend of a friend who's like, I'm really appreciating seeing you every day. You don't know how much it lifts me up right now.
That's it.
And you think no one's listening.
Mission accomplished, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's mission accomplished there.
Yeah. And you don't have to be a coach.
No. I was in the depths of our, whichever version of lockdown it was, 1, 2, whichever. I was inspired by a local head teacher. A local head teacher of a local school. So everyone's working from home. And every morning, this head teacher, at some time between 6:30 and 7 o'clock, would do a morning assembly on YouTube. Which the link only then went out to the school and to the parents and to the teachers. And it was messages like, look, today, don't worry too much about, what books and sums to do. Just get curious about something today. Read something, listen to something. And it was, and it's so-and-so's birthday from year 4 today, and he's grab his ukulele or guitar and do a quick happy birthday. And that was somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes every single day. And yeah, there were a lot of people saying, load of rubbish. But if there were 5 people who it kept them connected.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think little things like that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Monica, it's been absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for listening.
No, yeah. I've loved it. It's been a great conversation. So thanks ever so much. So that was One Thought at a Time with Ian Travers and our guest on the sofa for the second time, Monica Gaisie. If you've enjoyed the conversation and you want to reach out to Monica or myself, you'll find all the details in the comments section underneath the podcast. If you'd like to hear more conversations, please like and subscribe, and we look forward to you joining us here again. Thanks very much.